Alright guys, Mr. Guy again. This is going to be our first lesson on adding and subtracting polynomials and just some information about polynomials in general. This is kind of our next step of equation that we're going to be talking about. We've already talked about linear functions before. So there's y equals mx plus b, point slope, standard form, all that kind of stuff. And this is kind of the next step. This is where we're going to start adding in some exponents and things and talking about a little more complicated equations. You should have in front of you the note sheet that looks like this. If you do not, please pause the video right now and find it. We are going to be taking notes together here a little bit, and now I'll explain to you kind of what you're going to be doing. Okay? First off, the first thing right here is a monomial. And it's going to be very hard for me to write, so I apologize for the terrible writing. I'm writing with a mouse. So if it looks like a second grader wrote it, it is about the equivalent. Okay, a monomial, M-O-N-O-M-I-A-L, is an expression that is a number, a variable, or a group of a number and a variable. Okay, and the way I like to think of a monomial is basically it is a number, a variable, and things that are being multiplied. Okay, so where you see this group, you can kind of write off to the side and write a little dot for multiplication or whatever you want to do. Okay, they're being multiplied. These things are together by multiplication. 12x, 4xy cubed are all things that we could consider monomials. C over 3, also monomial, because remember, this could also be thought of as 1/3 multiplied by c. Okay, so all of these are monomials. 4 over x would not be a monomial because x is, if you guessed it, in the denominator. Okay, it is not being multiplied, it's being divided. Okay, so we need to have all of our variables in the numerator, and they need to be multiplied. This is denominator. It looks horrible. I apologize once again for my horrible online handwriting. Maybe by the end of this, it will get a little bit better. Okay, but this is our monomials. Now, a polynomial, if you've ever heard the word poly before, maybe in science class, you might have heard that before, but a polynomial just means it's a bunch of monomials hanging out together. Okay, so whereas a monomial is just a number being multiplied by a variable, okay, or just a number by itself, or just a variable by itself, a polynomial is just a bunch of monomials being added or subtracted together. Okay, they're just hanging out together. Hey, what's up? We're going to be added together, be subtracted, or whatever. Okay, so there's a lot of different examples of this. I could do something like x plus 1, right? That is a polynomial. And if you notice, it also would be like a linear function, right? If I told you x plus 1. So those are technically part of a polynomial. I could have something even more complicated. I could say like x squared plus 3x minus 5. I could say that that is a polynomial. Okay, it's got a little more going on to it, but it's just a bunch of monomials hanging out with each other. Okay, the sum of two monomials is known as a binomial. And once again, I apologize for my handwriting with this thing. B-I-N-O-M-I-A-L, a binomial. Okay, is a binomial. Okay, these things are two monomials being added together. This one right here, this x plus 1, could be an example of a binomial, just two things together. The sum of three monomials is a trinomial. Try for 3. I know you've heard of that before. Okay, so a trinomial, and once again, I'm writing below the line. You should be writing on the line, just because my binomial kind of took over the line. And, you know, this isn't going to be the neatest thing in the world. Okay, so in this second one I wrote over here, this would be an example of a trinomial. 3 monomials hanging out together, being added or subtracted. Okay, now if you're getting too bored right now and you're falling asleep, I know some of you are probably doing that. Matt, watching you. Okay, make sure you wake yourself back up. Gotta finish these notes real quick. Okay, now when we are looking at adding or subtracting these, we are going through and we want to look at what's going to happen with these, because the whole name of our lesson is adding and subtracting polynomials. Okay. One of the things that we're really going to be focusing on is called the degree of a monomial. Okay, the degree. In fact, we're also going to look at degrees of polynomials. Okay, the degree is always referring to whatever monomial has the highest exponent power, and it's the sum of the exponents that are there. Okay. So when we look at it, if you look at like a non-zero constant number, so just like 7. If you think of 7, 7 technically has an x with it. It's hiding out. but its exponent is 0. So the degree of that would be 0. Okay? So 2x to the second, y to the third, so if you look over here, the degree of this would be the sum of its exponents. So I'll go ahead and add those together. 2 plus 3, which would give me 5. That would be the degree of that monomial. Okay? And this is a monomial because these are all being multiplied. Monomials are multiplied together. Polynomials, when we take these and we add them all together. When I talk about the degree of a polynomial, I am looking for whatever the largest degree is in the polynomial. I want to go through and look at each monomial that makes it up, and I want to figure out which one has that highest power. So like if you look at this polynomial right here, I can see right here that I have x to the fourth. This one has a degree of 4. This one has a degree of 2. This one has a degree of 1. Remember, if you don't see it, there's a 1 hanging out there. And this one has a degree of 0. Which one has the highest degree? It would be this first one with a degree of 4. So the degree of this polynomial would be 4. We're going to do 2 of these together over here. After we do 2, I want you to try the rest. Pause the video after we do those 2. And then after you pause the video and come back, we'll review how to do those 3. Please actually try these on your own after we do 1 or 2 of these to see if you know what's going on, and then check your answer with me. First off, polynomial, 7x plus 4. The highest power I see here is 1, so 1 is going to be my degree. Okay? The name using the degree, if we have something to the first power, that's something that we've talked about before. That would be a linear function. Remember, that's what makes something linear, is that it has an exponent of 1 as its degree. Okay? The 7x plus 4 would be linear. Okay? The number of terms, there are 2 terms that make this up. There's a monomial 7x and 4. So this polynomial has 2 terms, which if we use those names we looked up at the top, if I scroll back up, these names we came up with here, binomial and trinomial, because there's 2 terms, this would be a binomial. Okay, this would be a binomial. And once again, my wonderful handwriting here. Okay, so that's one of these. That's what kind of what you expect to do in this chart. Next one down here, if you look at the degree, again, I have 3 different monomials being added together. 3x squared, 2x, and 1. The highest degree I see is the x squared. That means the highest degree for this polynomial will be 2. The name using the degree, when we have a power of 2, I don't know if you remember from earlier in the year, we kind of briefly talked about these, would be called a quadratic. Okay, quadratic. Q-U-A-D-R-A-T-I-C. Once again, I really apologize for how ugly that looks. Okay? After you do that, let's look at the number of terms. We have 1, 2, 3 terms here. 3 monomials being added together, which would make this a trinomial. Trinomial, just like my handwriting needs to try a little bit harder. Trinomial. Okay? That's kind of what I want you to do to fill out this chart. Okay, so if you guys want to go ahead and pause the video for a moment and then come back, and magically you'll see that this will be filled in, and you can check your answers and see how you did. So go ahead and fill in the rest of this chart. All right, hopefully you actually went ahead and tried this and paused the video and now are coming back and checking your work. If you notice the 3 below, you might not have known the names using the degree, only kind of the bottom one you might have known. But cubic is when we have to the 3rd power and quartic to the 4th. And the last one is a constant. Okay, it's just a constant, just a number that's hanging out there. But the number of the degrees, 3, 4, and 0. Number of terms should have gotten 1, 2, and 1. And then the 1 term is a monomial, 2 terms is a binomial, and then the last one again, 1 term is a monomial. Okay, being able to identify these things are very important, because knowing these things will help us when we go to add and subtract these in a moment here. Okay? Now, if you scroll down, one of the big things that we want to do when we look at a polynomial is we want to write it in what we call standard form. Now, this is not, well, it's kind of like linear standard form, but it's a little bit different. In standard form, what you are trying to do is you are trying to write your polynomial with the highest degree coming first. You want to have them go in order from left to right. So 3x squared plus 2x plus 1, that's standard form. It is going from highest to lowest. 2 is the highest degree monomial we have. Then we have 2x, next highest degree 1. And then we have 1, next highest degree 0. It's right in order. This one over here is not in standard form. If you notice, the highest degree falls in the middle, 6x to the 4th. That should be out front, to be in standard form. Standard form kind of helps us keep organized when we're looking at these polynomials. So we kind of know which ones have the same degree, which things have like terms and things, which is really how we're going to be adding and subtracting these together. Okay? Now, go ahead and see if you can write this in standard form. So that would be making sure that your highest degree comes first. Okay, so go ahead and see if you can write that in here. Tell me what you get. Take a pause for a second, then come back, and we'll see what you got. All right, if you went ahead and you finished that, it should look something like this. 6x to the fourth plus 5x cubed minus 2x plus 1. We move this part basically right here to the front to make sure that we went in order of our degrees. Okay, 4, 3, 1, and 0. Now, you might notice we're missing the second power in here. That's okay. A polynomial does not need to have every single power as it goes down the line. It can miss some. It can only have a few. Okay, all that matters is that they're in order from highest grade to what you have there. Okay, now I'm going to show you my method in order for adding and subtracting these together. Really, this is not a new skill. We already know how to combine like terms, and that's all we're going to be doing when we're adding and subtracting these polynomials, is looking for like terms and adding or subtracting them together. Again, not every polynomial has to have every power. So sometimes we add polynomials together, they will not have all the same like terms. That's okay. We only add the things that are alike. So when I look at number 1, the method I like to use is called the shape method. Here's what I do. I come up with a shape for each of my degrees, each monomial, and then when I see something that has matching shapes, I go ahead and combine their like terms together. For example, 4x squared. This is going to be my x squared shape. I'll put a box around it. This one's negative 6x. I'll go ahead and put a circle around this. This is a negative. I kind of cut it off with my mouse. Okay, but I'll just remember the negative 6x. And then 7, I'll put a triangle around that. That's the thing with no x's. Over here, I'll look to see if I have matching parts. 2x squared. I have an x squared over here. I put a box around that. I'll put a box around this one. Negative 9x. Hey, I have an x term over here. I'll put a circle around this one. And then 1, I have a one that has no x's over there. So I'll put a triangle around this. And then I combine those like terms together. 4x squared plus 2x squared. So I'll go ahead and combine those together. Get 6x squared. That will be the first term in my new polynomial. I'll then go to the next one. Negative 6x plus negative 9x. That's going to give me, so let's see if I do negative 6x plus negative 9x. And you'll notice I'm kind of almost doing keep change with these. I'm kind of ignoring the factor subtraction and thinking of them as negative numbers that kind of simplified for me. If I combine those together, I'm going to get negative 15x. And the last ones are the number part. 7 plus 1 will give me 8. Making sure to write this in standard form, going in order of my degrees, I'm going to end up with 6x squared minus 15x plus 8 as my final answer, adding these polynomials together. Okay? Combining just the like terms together. Now, I'm going to have you guys go ahead and try this bottom one for me. Pay attention to the fact that not every single degree is covered in both polynomials. If you have something that only shows up in one polynomial, I'll just kind of give you a hint here, and not the other, that means that you need to just include whatever it is in the end product. Don't try to combine them with anything. Go ahead and try this one for me. Pause the video, then come back and check and see how you did. All right, hopefully you're checking back to see how you did. My final answer is over here. I'll put a nice big circle around it so you can kind of see. I kind of went off the side there. See what my answer is. If you notice, this is a subtraction. Hopefully you did not miss that. So you're doing 2x cubed minus x cubed. Here you're doing a keep change, right? 2 wrongs make a right in math class. Subtracting negative 8x, I get 13x squared. Negative 3x has got nothing to combine with, so it's just going to hang out. Negative 11, because we have minus 11. It's got nothing to combine with. It's just going to hang out. So we end up with this as our final answer in standard form. That's going to finish up our video on adding and subtracting polynomials. There's an example of an addition and subtraction problem. It's just combining like terms, guys. Just make sure you're being careful about making sure you're only combining things that are alike and whether you're adding or subtracting. One thing you can always do if you want to start one of these problems is distribute that negative through. So you could have looked at this as negative x squared plus 8x squared minus 11. or negative x cubed minus plus 8x squared minus 11. Hope you enjoyed.